heading into the midterm elections coming up. It seems like crime is a big issue. The border is popping up as well. And now it sounds almost like there's foreign interference. How do you see this all tying together?
They're talking about foreign interference. One of the big things is actually free speech, really. And this is actually a major shift taking place right now. Kanye West, who legally changed his name to Ye, he's going through with his purchase of social media platform Parler. Now, this is happening right alongside another big seismic shift, which is happening right now. Elon Musk's bid to purchase Twitter is moving forward. At the same time, the Biden administration is targeting them. He's under federal investigations, Elon Musk, for the purchase. I mean, details are still vague, but it's suspected this has something to do with his trying to pull out, considering pulling out, at least threatening to, over the Twitter's vague data on fake users. And take that as well. There's Parler, there's Truth Social as well. That's Trump's platform. Now, they shot to the top of Google Play shortly after being added to the platform. And, I mean, if you watched the way this just went on social media, if you're watching the way that the legacy news outlets have been reacting to this, they are melting down. And the way they're doing it is really interesting. One of the big arguments is that if the censorship policies end, if Americans can talk freely, if we can discuss with each other, they say this is going to impact the midterm elections. Now, since when is it that being able to talk freely with each other, being able to have conversations with your neighbor is election interference? And that's the way they're framing it.
And it sounds like on that note of, say, free speech and all of these different apps, right? Apps have been popping up. There seem to be new ones every day. And it really does seem like that's a leftover from the pandemic, right? Working from home and remote learning are now the norm. But really, what have the effects been, right? It seems we're only now starting to see them, right? Are we getting dumber? According to recent data, students were especially hit hard by the pandemic, right? Now, the average score for the ACT, which you need to get into many colleges, has just dropped to its lowest level in over 3 decades. So what does that mean for our future, right? The future of our children as they head into schools and also take on leadership roles, right? So that's a concern that's been popping up. But it's not just the educational sector that really seems to have taken a hit. There's also, the economy, right? We're seeing inflation hitting a 40-year high. I'm sure we're all feeling the effects of that in our pocketbooks. There's even now, right, talks of stagflation, a recession now making the headlines. So where is the country headed? Economists are saying that inflation would go away once supply chain issues were resolved. But it doesn't seem like that's really played out, because the latest report on inflation seems to show that it went from goods to services and still here to stay. It's now hitting healthcare, education, other service sectors, as well as shelter. Housing prices are going up. But sticking on the pandemic, perhaps the biggest toll that we're really seeing now is on health, both physically and mentally. According to a recent report, researchers found that the stress of the pandemic may have altered Americans' personality, and that's not a good thing.
I think we can see it.
Researchers found that there's been significant declines in the traits that help us navigate social situations, our trust in others, how we think creatively, and act responsibly. As for what that means for our future, and it seems one area concerned citizens are turning to is electing the next batch of leaders. So, Josh, where do you see that front ticking off?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the elections are one of the big things happening right now. And frankly, things are really not looking well for the Democrats. The midterm elections are right around the corner. Polling data we're seeing right now is really showing the Democrats are going to lose. A New York Times poll found that 49% of likely voters say they're going to vote Republican. Only 45% say they're going to vote Democrat. That's a New York Times poll. It noted that President Joe Biden's falling approval ratings are hurting the Democrat Party. And at the same time, they're losing independent women voters. Now, take that as one part of it. There's similar shifts taking place elsewhere. Latin American voters who voted 60% Democrat in 2020 are now almost evenly split. Wall Street Journal, for example, a poll from December last year found that only 44% of Hispanic voters said they're going to back Biden. 43% said they'd vote Trump. Now, polls are just polls, of course, take it for what they're worth. But there's a key part of this, right? The New York Times poll also found the economy is what people care about a whole lot more than all these other controversies they're trying to throw at us. They care more about the tangible effects on their wallet, on whether they can afford gas, whether they can go to the store and afford, the groceries they normally buy. It's these basic, tangible things that people care the most about with the elections. And these are the basic, tangible things that are very likely going to be getting a whole lot worse. We can look, for example, what's happening with inflation, stagflation, whatever you want to call it. One of the big realities with this, folks, the Federal Reserve, they're saying they want to cause unemployment. They need to reduce demand. Now, if we're talking about a supply and demand economy, the basis of a free system, right? Supply and demand. You can reduce supply. You can reduce, for example, goods available in stores. How do you reduce demand? How do you make people not want to purchase things? Well, you have to reduce the amount of money they have to be able to spend. And they're saying now that unemployment is going to go through the roof. Unemployment is going to be increasing. And that's part of the pain people are going to feel going, interestingly, into the midterm elections. Probably making, as these polls we just showed you, making these hit even harder if that's one of the key issues voters care about.
Those questions and more we'll get into later with our guests tonight. But one area that does seem to be getting a lot of attention lately is past elections, going back to the 2016 presidential election. And while Watergate has gone down in history, are we witnessing something right now unfolding in front of us? That's with the Durham trial. We're finding out that the Trump-Russian collusion was a hoax. Instead, did the FBI and members of our government lie under oath? And what's this about $1 million involved? Lots of questions.